She used to joke that I hit the jackpot when I married her. It wasn't even subtle. "You know you're lucky, right?" she'd say, laughing over wine, tucking her hair behind one ear with that practiced charm she carried like perfume. The kind of charm that didn't just walk into a room. It announced itself. And I'd laugh with her, because I believed it. I really did. I used to think marrying Lila was like catching lightning in a bottle. She had this way of making you feel like the world was spinning a little faster just because she was in it. Everyone loved her. Strangers on the street would smile. Friends called her radiant. My mother said she had a glow you couldn't fake. And me? I was just a guy from a quiet suburb, good with numbers, slow with words, and quicker to listen than talk. I didn't mind the jokes. I was lucky. At least, I thought I was. We met at a mutual friend's engagement party. She spilled sangria on my shirt and apologized with the kind of warmth that makes you forget you're embarrassed. She asked if I liked jazz. I didn't, but I said yes anyway. She smiled like she already knew I was lying, but liked that I tried. 2 months later, we were inseparable. 6 months in, we were moved in. A year later, married under a sky so blue it felt staged. And for a while, it was good. Or maybe I just wanted it to be. She worked in marketing, always in meetings, always on calls, always surrounded by people who seemed hungrier for admiration than results. I worked in software infrastructure. Quiet, logical, structured. I kept the lights on behind the curtain. She danced in the spotlight. That dynamic didn't bother me. I liked building things that worked. I liked letting her shine. I thought that's what love was, lifting someone higher and not minding the view from below. But over time, those pedestal jokes turned into reminders. You're lucky I stayed with someone so grounded. You'd be a mess without me. Other women would kill for someone like me, you know. It was always wrapped in a laugh, always coated in sugar. But the meaning stuck. The first time I caught her lying, it was small. A dinner she said was with the girls that turned out to be with someone named Julian. A client, she said. "Don't be jealous," she smiled, her arms wrapped around me as she said it. "It's cute, but trust me, you don't have to worry." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Because the idea of losing her felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and watching the world pull away. But something didn't sit right. Not after that. So I did something I'd never done before in our marriage. I checked her phone. It was unlocked. She was in the shower. The guilt hit me the second I picked it up. But curiosity is a slow poison. You sip it until it owns you. There weren't messages from Julian. At least not anymore. But there were deleted threads. Voicemails missing. And an app one didn't recognize, a second number. One she never told me about. I didn't confront her. I just watched. The distance grew. The kisses got shorter. The laughs less frequent. I blamed stress. Deadlines. The world. But one night, I couldn't sleep. She was out again, some marketing retreat. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was losing my mind or just finally waking up. I Googled the app. A burner number service. And that's when the cracks started spreading. I hired a private investigator the next day. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was this cold, hollow curiosity. Like poking a wound just to see how deep it went. It didn't take long. A week later, he handed me a folder. Receipts. Photos. Messages. But the man in the pictures wasn't Julian. It was someone else. Older. Married. A regional director at her firm. I stared at the images until my hands shook. And still, some foolish part of me thought, maybe this was the first time. Maybe it was a one-time mistake. A moment of weakness. People mess up. But it wasn't. The investigator told me something I didn't ask to know. "She's done this before," he said, quiet, hesitant. "At least twice that we could confirm. Once during your engagement. Once the year after your honeymoon." He showed me names. Faces. Timelines. Each one overlapping with moments I remembered as good. Vacations. Birthdays. Anniversaries. Each memory now with a shadow behind it. I went home that night and sat in the driveway for over an hour. Engine running. Keys still in the ignition, not sure whether to walk in or drive away for good. She said I was lucky to have her. But I wasn't lucky. I was used. And now, with the truth sitting like a stone in my stomach, I wasn't sure if I was even angry. Just empty. I didn't confront her that night. I just lay beside her in bed, her back turned to me, the same way it had been for weeks. And I thought about all the times she laughed and called me lucky. Not realizing, I think, that some people win the lottery and lose it all the same day. The next morning, I made her coffee the way she liked it. extra cream, just a pinch of cinnamon. I handed it to her as she scrolled on her phone in that detached way she'd mastered. She didn't look up, just murmured a thank you like we were still playing house. I watched her sip it, her robe loosely tied, legs tucked under her on the couch. I wondered how many mornings she'd done this, sat in the same spot, worn the same expression, and carried secrets under her skin like they were just another layer of makeup. I didn't tell her what I knew, not because I was afraid, but because I wasn't ready. I needed time, not to forgive, to understand. When you discover betrayal like that, layered, strategic, repeated, it doesn't crush you all at once. It's slower, like fog rolling in, dulling your senses inch by inch until you can't tell which memories were real and which were just well performed. I spent the next few days floating through the routines of our life, silently collecting pieces. Bank statements, passwords, legal documents she never thought I'd read. I found evidence of cash transfers, untraceable, neatly broken into withdrawals just under the reporting threshold. I found an old email exchange between her and someone named T, short for Thomas, the first affair, the one during our engagement. It was all still there, in her archived inbox. He told her he missed her. She told him she didn't love me yet, but I'd be a safe choice. A safe choice. She married me because I was safe, because I was quiet, because I wouldn't ruin the illusion. That's what I realized. I wasn't her partner. I was her alibi. I remembered how, during a fight 2 years ago, she threw a wine glass at the wall and shouted, "You think you're so perfect, but you'd be lost without me." At the time, I thought it was the wine talking. Now, I heard the truth inside it. I was never her equal. I was her backdrop. She performed her life in front of me, for others, not with me. The PI kept digging. More came out. The second affair, the one during our first year of marriage, was with her yoga instructor. Classic. Cliché. But the worst part? She'd introduced us. I shook his hand, invited him to dinner once. We all sat around the table eating pad thai I'd made while they stole glances over wine. I thought I was being a good host. He thought he was sleeping with the better half of the couple. You don't recover from that realization easily. The human mind can only hold so much dissonance before something cracks. One night, I stood in front of our bathroom mirror and looked at myself like a stranger. I didn't look broken. I looked blank. And that terrified me more than tears ever could. Because pain means you're still alive. Numbness means you're fading. I went to a lawyer. I didn't tell her. I didn't start a fight. I didn't throw accusations or shatter plates. I just began the paperwork. In parallel, I visited a therapist. I needed one person in my life who wasn't trying to use me or fix me. Just someone to help me understand how I ended up here. You strike me as someone who internalizes, she said. You're calm because you were taught to be. But calm isn't always peace. Sometimes it's just armor. She was right. I was the man who never raised his voice, never argued in public, never said no when it came to making her life easier. That made me easy to walk over, to rewrite, to lie to. I was so focused on building her dream that I never noticed she wasn't part of mine. One evening, I came home to find her humming in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. She turned, smiled, kissed me like we were still newlyweds. It felt like watching an actor hit their mark. And that's when it hit me. She never feared losing me, because she didn't think I had it in me to walk away. I started sleeping in the guest room. She didn't question it, claimed I was stressed with work. And when she did ask what was wrong, I just smiled and said I was tired. She believed that, because she thought she'd already won, that I would crumble quietly, sign whatever she needed, and fade like wallpaper. She didn't know I was collecting every detail, every receipt, every contradiction. She didn't know I had a binder full of evidence with dates, names, accounts, a log of late-night calls, text screenshots, hotel bookings. She didn't know I'd met with a financial advisor, set up new accounts in my name only, and created a separate digital paper trail. And she didn't know I'd started therapy not to save the marriage, but to mourn the version of myself that let this go on for so long. I wasn't her third affair. I was her third victim, but I'd be her last. She never saw it coming. That's the part that stays with me, the calm before the collapse. The final weeks of pretending. I kept smiling, kept bringing her coffee, kept letting her believe she was still the star of a show that had long since lost its audience. There was a dinner, some boutique restaurant she'd been raving about for weeks. She wore red, always red when she wanted the world to look at her. I let her talk, laugh, boast about the next campaign at work. I nodded at all the right times, toasted her success. And the next morning, I filed. Not with a scene, not with a fight, just silence. A courier handed her the envelope. She called my name from the hallway, voice tight. Is this a joke? I looked at her. Really looked. She was still beautiful, still magnetic, still dangerous in that way only someone who knows you deeply can be. But I felt nothing. No heat. No ache. Just distance. She followed me into the kitchen, waving the papers. You're seriously doing this? Over what? Because I'm too much for you? I leaned against the counter. No, I said. Because I finally realized what I'm not. She frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm not your safety net. I'm not your cover story. I'm not the quiet guy you run back to after every detour. She went still. Her hand dropped. You went through my phone, she said, defensive. I went through years of lies. There was a pause, thick with everything unsaid. And then she did what I expected, what people like her always do when cornered. She shifted blame. You're the one who checked out. You've been cold for months. You're probably seeing someone, aren't you? I didn't flinch. No, I'm just done being someone you can rewrite. She scoffed. You think you'll find better? I don't need better, I said. I need real. She stood there, stunned, like I'd punched a hole through the version of me she kept in her head. The one who'd always come back, always forgive, always fold. But I didn't fold. I walked. By the end of the week, I'd moved out. Quietly. No posts. No announcements. Just keys on the counter and a clean break. And then came the unraveling. She didn't take it well. Not because she missed me, because she lost control. She called, texted, showed up at my office once, trying to cry, trying to seduce, trying every trick in her book. But the pages had been torn out. I didn't answer. Her friends reached out. Her sister, her coworker. One of them let something slip during a voicemail. I thought he knew she'd done this before. That's when I realized even her circle had accepted the pattern. Like it was just Lila being Lila. Like love was a game she played to keep herself entertained. I blocked them all. Not out of hate, but because you don't heal in the same place you were broken. The divorce moved fast. I had everything documented. There were no screaming matches, no court theatrics. Just facts. Dates. Signatures. She tried to negotiate. Cried in mediation. Said we had so much history. But all I saw was the weight I'd carried for years, now finally set down. The settlement left her with what she brought in. And me? I walked away lighter. Not richer. Not happier, yet. But freer. Months passed. The nights were quiet. At first too quiet. Then beautifully so. I started painting again. Something I hadn't touched since college. I stopped listening to love songs. I started listening to silence, and realizing it didn't mean I was alone. It meant I had space. One evening, I ran into someone from our old circle at a coffee shop. She looked at me, surprised. You look different, she said. I feel different, I replied. She hesitated, then said, Lila told people you cheated on her. That you were cold. Controlling. I smiled. She can keep her version. Is it true? No, I said, sipping my coffee. But it doesn't matter anymore. That's what I've come to learn. Sometimes, you don't get justice. You get clarity. She told me once I was lucky to have her. But I was never lucky. I was loyal, devoted, blind. I gave love like a man building a cathedral and never noticed she was lighting matches in the pews. Now, she's blocked, forgotten, replaced. Not by someone else, but by someone better. Me.